Blindspot Season 2, Episode 18, Senile Lines. Really enjoyed this episode. I think they did a lot of good stuff. We actually have the departure of Nas at the end, which is fairly unfortunate, but that was kind of the, the big tease for this episode that someone was going away. And we have that dude, Whites, or however, I believe that's like Wheats or Whites, whatever. I hate that guy, because every time he comes in, it's just like, he's always there to just destroy something. He's always there to make it an issue with the team, so I just really hate that guy. But it was a really good episode for what they did, because we have a couple of the characters going through. Mostly I feel like they focus on Patterson and Zapata. They ultimately have the whole team there, but I feel like the biggest focus, especially with Patterson being the first person, was like, would you say that you're not so lucky with love or something like that? And I thought that was an interesting focus to kind of bring in with her. Like, she has crap. And I thought, okay, honestly, when he first brought it up, I thought it was because, first, of course, we have Borden most recently, but before that, she, of course, had her boyfriend who was murdered by this organization and stuff. And I'm like, is he really about to bring that up? Because that would have, I really don't see how that would have been relevant to anything. But fortunately, he stayed away from that, because I really would have been even angry if they brought that up. But, it's just the way they started things off with her and how they kind of get in touch with Zapata and, of course, Weller and then Jane. And I like the way they kind of talked about certain elements of the team, certain connections, and, where certain people's loyalty truly lies. Like when they talk with Jane, it's like, well, if we can't truly trust your loyalties, then how are we supposed to trust Weller's loyalties if he's so attached to you? So, they did some good stuff there for sure. But what I really enjoyed in this episode, I think honestly it may have been my favorite part, was actually what they did with Reade. I mentioned in the last episode him getting beat up may or may not lead to him getting some help. And it did. It wasn't like self-help, which is kind of what I was thinking. Like, he got beat up and he realized, like, crap, I need to just stop. But he actually ends up getting help from a veteran who may or may not return. I actually like that actor. I recognize him from quite a few things. I just don't know his name. But, he actually ends up getting help from this guy. And, they kind of have their back and forth throughout the episode where Reade is, not only not using his insurance and stuff like that, he's kind of keeping himself off the grid, but of course he's kind of isolating himself. He's not taking calls from anybody. Of course, nobody knows where he is, and he doesn't really want to talk with this guy. But as they, as the time moves on, they get a bit closer, and the guy kind of talks to him about his life story a little bit, and he tries to help him out. And he's like, hey, things that kind of absorb you a little bit, they can lead to some really dark stuff. And he could tell that obviously Reade was going through some dark stuff. And he's like, the big thing that you actually have to do is confront that darkness. He talks about how he went through therapy and how he had to basically look at pictures and stuff of the people that he lost and just how horrific it was. And it was because it was almost like terror versus horror, which terror is technically you imagining something, but horror is the actuality of it. So he's basically trying to help Reade get to, even though it sucks, he's trying to help him move from terror, which is his imagination, and, like he mentioned, filling in all the blanks himself and just imagining the worst of the worst and just looking at, what horrific things truly happen. And as hard as it is, he's like, that's what you have to do in order to kind of just contain it. I think that's what he says, like, instead of it being all-encompassing, it constantly takes you over, it's what you're thinking about all the time, it's just done. It's done and you contain it, and even if it stays with you, you at least know exactly what it is, and you're able to kind of quantify that in some way, shape, or form. It's not just you think this or you think that, and it's leaps and bounds beyond what it could be, but you don't know that because you're just imagining. So I like that he got help from this guy, and of course Reade in the end kind of befriends him, and he's like, I'll leave you my number. So we might actually see this guy show up, if not this season, because they mentioned there's only 4 episodes total. We got 3 more until the finale, so we got 4 episodes left in the season. So most likely he won't show up in this season, but we might see him in the next season. But I really liked what they did with Reade in this, where he just came back from such a crappy moment, and he just went down an insane spiral this whole season, from finding out the truth to helping his friend to doing drugs, and then of course getting beat up because he was continuing down that path. So I was glad to see that this was his way of actually getting some help, and at the end he ends up calling Zapata, and they ultimately do end up watching the tape. So I'm glad that he was able to get that help, and hopefully we'll get to see him kind of rejoin the team, even though technically he quit. I'm sure Weller didn't really put in all the processes and everything like that. It's just like, okay, he quit, but I'm sure if he came back like, hey, I know I was crazy, he's like, yeah, I didn't actually write any paperwork, so welcome back. So I'm sure everything will be fine once he does actually end up going back to the team. But I just thought that was really the best part of this episode. I really liked everything else as well. I liked the stuff that they did with the members and their depositions. I actually enjoyed the case as well because we got to see Roman go out on the case, which is actually pretty awesome. So this was his first episode, leaving the house and everything, which I thought that would be a bigger part of it, where he's, you know, he goes to like his meeting in the morning, and then we kind of get to see more of him just kind of trapped a little, where he's like, it's better than the room, but I'm still just trapped. We actually didn't get a lot of that because the mission was so intense, where it focused on these young children who were just put in the system, that Jane is able to suggest that Roman go along with the mission, and they actually do that, and I thought that was really cool. So we get to see him help them out again during a mission. He doesn't actually remember anything. They go a little bit further as far as the banking stuff, which fortunately Naz's people were able to help them out with by the end of the episode. But for what they did with Roman, I thought that was pretty cool, and him just going through, and like he helped the kid where he's like, hey, he had I forgot what it was, like a musical instrument, but he's like, I believe you guys should give it back to him, because if he took it after, you know, with all the chaos going on, that's the thing he grabbed. It has to be important, and that kind of leads to that really big revelation in the episode where they give it back to him, and the kid does reveal a lot of stuff, and he actually opens it, and it's like, yeah, I actually took this pill, and I was trying to prove that all this weird stuff was going on, or at least find out what weird stuff was happening. I was like, see, if it weren't for Roman, and him saying, like, you know, him having at least those small recollections of knowing, you know, from being in the system, having that one little piece being so, you know, important to whoever you may be, if it weren't for him coming up with that, they probably wouldn't have been able to go along the mission like they did. So he had a great moment there, and he helps them at the end, of course, when he and Jane kind of go in, and he's helping the kids, and he helps them hide in the other room. Although it was really funny, because I was like, I felt like the way they did that, when Jane was fighting the guy, so at first she flips the gun behind him, and he's kind of still shooting into where the kids are and stuff, and Roman like opens the door and it hits the door and stuff. I was like, man, that could have hit him. And then they run to the other room, and she ends up turning him around. I was like, she's trying to get Roman shot in the back or something. It was just really funny to me, because I was like, okay, the first time it was like she just countered, but then they ran from this side of the room all the way over to this side of the room, and she basically turned him around, and the bullets went from, you know, that side of the room to that side. And I was like, she's like almost trying to get this guy killed by a ricochet bullet. And it just made me laugh. But I know that it was meant to be serious, but it just made me laugh. I was like, she's almost trying to get him shot. But I really enjoyed what they did with Roman. The mission itself I thought was interesting, because of course it starts with these two kids arguing, and then it goes into the one girl like falling out of the window and stuff. It's like, did she fall out? Did he push her out? I figured he didn't, just because it's, you know, this type of show. I was like, he didn't actually push her, even though he took off. I was like, I know he didn't push her. It's going to be something crazy. And naturally it was. It was like drugs and the foster mother accepting this deal where they do something. I forgot exactly what they were doing with the kids. I forgot exactly what the drugs were meant to do. But, you know, basically she accepts that, and then it starts to go a little bit too far for her. And, you know, just all this insanity ensues because of that. But I really enjoyed the way they did the mission. And of course they have that moment at the end where we have the boy where Eli, and he of course takes those scissors, and he has that moment where the main characters kind of have to talk him down, like, hey, we know it's insane. We know you lost a very important person to you, and that you could have lost all of these other younger kids that you may not have been super close to, but you still cared about, and you know clearly better than this woman that innocent people should just be left alone. But you can't really, slit her throat with these scissors. You have to kind of just let it go and let her face justice. So that was a cool moment, and they were able to, of course, stop him from doing that, which would have been very interesting if they couldn't, and he still ended up going to jail because he did kind of get that revenge. That would have been an interesting twist, because typically the heroes are able to kind of give that cool speech and then it works. But if it didn't, that would have been something, especially because, he's a young child. It's not like an adult did it, where it's like, okay, they still will lose a big chunk of their life, but they're an adult. He's a teenager. It would have been a very different situation. Like, he goes into it, and then he would come out of prison, as an adult, that sort of thing. Didn't even get to be an adult, outside of prison. So it would have been interesting if they did that. I prefer it this way, where it's just at least as happy as it could be, because that would have been really sad. Like, the girl dies in the beginning, and then he goes to jail for killing the woman, in a fit of rage. So I was glad it didn't go down that road, even though it would have been somewhat unique. But I'm glad it kind of worked out the way that it did. And then, of course, sadly, with Naz leaving at the end of the episode, we do have her admitting to everything, and she's able to convince the guy to let the team go. So they have the nice moment where they all just, kind of drink a glass, and she's able to give them, the next big lead as to, kind of what they can do to take down Sandstorm. So it sucks to see her go, but I'm looking forward to what they do with this. Them losing an important team member. Maybe we will get to see her come back, after all this craziness goes down. Maybe we will get to see what happens there. I kind of doubt she'll come back because this is, that's what the guy was doing. Like they even say in the beginning of the episode, pretty much all he wants to do is kind of charge at them because he's kind of up and coming. He wants to have like this grand case, like I solved it, I got this bad person, and she serves herself up just like that. So I don't really see there being a logical way out of it. Not that I can think of. I also don't know law or any of these loopholes that they could possibly come up with. But I don't know. Like she gave herself up for every single thing, and she's even able to convince him outside of destroying the entire team, just going after one person. And that says a lot. So I really don't know if there's some way that they could make it work where she comes back to the team. Most likely next season, I would assume. But that doesn't mean we won't see her. But maybe not until like the finale or maybe the episode before. She might actually kind of make a small return to just help the team out, even though it's not technically legal. So we might still see her, in one of these, last 4 episodes. But sucks to see her go. And then of course after, they have that moment, we actually cut to Shepard in Bangkok, and she just has a buttload of barrels of just radiation, just radioactive fluids. And I'm just like, all right, that cannot be good. And she specifies the entire hemisphere. That's really bad. And I would assume that, considering what I saw in this and what we've seen before, her plan is to make like a nuclear fallout cloud, because that's why they have the rocket. So it's to put all the barrels on there, send it up into the atmosphere, explode it, and then all of these radioactive fluids are just in the atmosphere. Like, it would start off as fluids, but of course with an explosion it would, turn into a gaseous state, and then just go into clouds, and it would become like acid rain, and it would just like kill everything and everyone. And that's an intense plan. Like, that's the sort of thing that could destroy the entire planet. Like, that's not a simple little thing where it's like, oh, it just takes this out. Like, that will destroy like everything. That, you destroy a hemisphere of the planet, I'm pretty sure you will end up wiping out the entire planet at some point. It might take some time for it to like stretch over, but that would kill like every person on the planet if you literally have enough radiation to wipe out an entire hemisphere. Eventually that'll get to the other half. Like, it just would. That's just a fact. Like, that's not just going to go away. It's in the atmosphere permanently, and it will travel little by little to other destinations. Winds and tornadoes and tsunamis and all sorts of random stuff would carry all that radiation. So I'm assuming that is phase 2. It's to use this radiation, just put all these barrels on a rocket, just, at least going up close to space, and then just blow it up really high in the atmosphere, one of the spheres, and then just let that fall as it may, and just take people out slowly but surely with all that radiation. So that's an insane plan, but that's definitely some evil genius stuff, and it makes sense why they needed so much money now, because you don't get a missile or a rocket. Heck, rockets are more expensive than missiles. You don't get an entire rocket ship and all this, all these barrels of radiation in order to pull off a plan unless you have a ton of money. So we now know what they're going to do. At least I'm assuming. I mean, that seems like the obvious thing. You have something that can go to space. You have something that could destroy everything if you put it into the, the right form. Combine them together, acid rain, all that stuff, especially considering I'm watching the 100 right now. I know exactly how that would play out. So I'm like, yep, that would kill everyone. So, crazy plan, but now we know what phase 2 is supposed to be. It's way worse than I expected. I was like, she's going to do something really crazy and take out the government. This is just taking out, like I said, an entire chunk of the planet. That's way crazier than I ever would have expected, considering everything they do is like, oh, take out these bad people here and bad people there. They are wiping out everything. This isn't like, the few versus the many. This is like, they're just killing everybody off. This is up to the point where they're just straight up super villains. Like, this isn't just, this isn't terrorist activity. This is like super villain, activity at this point. So can't wait to see what they end up doing with this and how close they actually get to it. I'm sure, of course, they'll fail, because the show would change. It would not be the same series if they succeeded and it was nuclear fallout on the entire Western Hemisphere. So that just, they aren't going to do that. But would love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. Definitely want to know what you guys think about the plan. If you think I'm right as far as what they might be planning for phase 2, I would love to know your theories for what else they might use, all the barrels of radiation for, and, maybe in a different form. I don't think I'm too far off considering, rocket and radiation and how that works with clouds and whatnot. So that's my theory on it. Would love to know your theory on it. And of course, want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.